And now a report on trading at the Rio Mardi Gras. Brazil suffers from a surplus of starving peasants and bloated capitalists. But for Rio's one day of the year, the pleasure index stayed high, so long as the band kept playing the rumba.
Still there never seems to be a single penny left for me. That's too bad.
I see him as somebody who's had amazing longevity and consistency, and he's always got something new and interesting. Not always without controversy, but that's part of his appeal.
Well, Bob, I think, is the most important business journalist in Australia in the last 50 years. He's a remarkable man. He's universally respected in the finance community and in the business community.
He really changed the whole nature of business journalism from a very boring, numbers-driven type of journalism to something really exciting. His enthusiasm would come through. He would do the fly-on-the-wall stories where you got to know what was going on behind the scenes, the power plays, the skullduggery. He totally transformed business journalism.
And now 1 in every 2 chickens that we eat in Australia, 50% of the market, is produced by the Ingham brothers, and that's a lot of chickens.
Well, I first met Bob in 1979 when typically he was organising the succession of Chanticleer, which he'd been doing for 5 years for the Financial Review, and hired me as a young journalist off the age to eventually take over. And I'm sitting there and he's getting all these phone calls from Reg Ansett, from Robert Holmes-a-Court, from Sir Peter Abels, and I quickly learned that actually he was like this, almost an intermediary between them. These people were talking to each other through Bob.
Well, he was always known as Whispering Bob. And I think he just engaged people, and people trust him and would tell him things. And, you know, they knew that it was in the vault. And that's how he would get some great stories.
Oh, Robert Holmes-a-Court wants to take control of BHP, and he wants to make some money.
Well, the thing about Bob is that he really connects with people. I mean, at the same time as he was doing Chanticleer, then he was appearing on the 7:30 report on the ABC. And also the news, and he was doing these spots, and I learned from him then the way to connect to people on camera in a way that few people are able to do, and he was just a natural at it.
But if you look carefully into the prospectus, you see that to get that yield, Medibank is paying far more of its profits out in dividends than it plans to do in the future.
So we started Business Spectator in October of 2007, so it was right around the time of the financial crisis. And Bob was in his mid-60s at the time, and I've never seen a more energetic mid-60-year-old. He was amazing. He was working around the clock, and his and Alan's motto was, "Why pay for yesterday's news?" And so Business Spectator would be published first thing in the morning with all the news breaking from the US and the European markets, and they work through the night.
What has kept you going all these years? Because you've done a lot, radio, TV, print obviously. What's been your driving force?
The sheer fascination of stories and ideas, and the fact that you want to be able to explain relatively complex things to a whole range of people, both in the business community and out of the business community.
Bob is one of the most generous people in the game. I started at BRW and he was amazing. I can't think of anyone else other than Bob that's promoted women like he has. And he's had so many journalists who he's mentored, like Ross Greenwood, Ivor Reeves, even David Koch.
I wouldn't expect to see eye to eye with any journalist about anything all the time. That would be a mark of failure on somebody's part. But what I do respect about him is that he's still interesting to read.
Fun and frolicking were up about 12 points on last year's Mardi Gras, and there was heavy trading in wild dancing and rhythmical throbbing. There was quite a run on sex just before closing, but analysts said this was due to purely psychological factors.